So you got a penalty you don't agree with. Maybe you think a mistake is made, you have evidence in hand, but most series only accept a protest, and that protest comes with a fee. $500 or more. Maybe you're not even sure if your evidence is worth it. Should there be another option? Let's get into it. Money in racing is nothing new. After all, racing literally began with a bunch of rich guys who were the only people around who owned cars deciding to see which one was faster. But when it comes to mistakes in officiating, which do happen, should paying money be the only way to get officials or anybody to look at it? The whole point of putting a price on an inquiry or protest is to make it so that the people who are going to do so aren't going to take up officials' time for something frivolous. They believe in what they're doing, they truly feel like they are right, they have the evidence, and they are willing to put their money up to prove their case. Because if they are wrong, they lose that money. It's a good idea, in theory. No matter how high or low the cost is, you have always created a barrier for some that is completely meaningless to others. In much the same way that on-track financial penalties are unbalanced, it means that money buys opportunity for fairness in racing. That is definitely a situation that we would want to minimize. But how? In my experience, the vast majority of protests are over tech disqualifications, although some are for on-track calls. Now, tech disqualifications are not something that a race director is going to be able to deal with on the spot. And complicated things that happened on track are not necessarily something that are going to be easy to deal with. Or maybe just the competitor isn't jazzed about having the race director review the call that they feel the race director got wrong in the first place. That's fair. But when it comes to simple on-track calls where a video is in hand that shows very clearly and indisputably that a mistake was made or a call was missed, why wouldn't we want to have an opportunity to look at that? That competitors will treat a free inquiry as a free protest. Back when I first moved into officiating, I was a starter for ASN Canada, and indeed, they had an inquiry system, I believe it was 2010, that was a full investigation. You can imagine that competitors took advantage of this, including a particular Canadian Formula One driver, before they would move to an actual protest, because a full investigation was made. But it was a legal thing to do. As you can imagine, ASN Canada very quickly dropped that inquiry system. But was there a better way? When I started race directing a few years later at the club, I brought that inquiry system with me, but stripped it down to the very bare bones of a competitor has to fill out a form completely or it gets rejected. They have to have evidence in hand that is indisputable and clear, otherwise it gets rejected. And it's for one call and they only get one shot at it. And my experience has been mostly positive. The vast majority of inquiries don't actually get through. People try to do it for whatever emotional reason they have in the moment, and then as they get faced with these barriers of having to fill out a form, understand what the penalty was, and then try to actually have evidence for it, it ends up filtering out the calls that were legitimate or calls that don't have enough evidence to be overturned. But in the circumstances where there is very clear, indisputable evidence, those calls that were a mistake were able to be overturned. Nothing. Competitors do need to have a way of trying to resolve things where maybe the evidence isn't particularly clear, or they don't trust the official for whatever personal reason they have, and that is a system that is in place. It's great, but protests are almost always filed by large teams with deep pockets. It is a very rare occasion that I ever see a protest from an individual. Should it really matter? Just because it's a big race doesn't mean that everybody's budget is equal in that series. And as for the officials' time, when I'm doing a club race versus a regional or national series, my time isn't any less or more. Sure, there is more pressure on those large races, but in actuality of keeping up with the schedule, it's really no different for me. In fact, the pressure on trying to wrap up a club race when there's a arrive and drive after or a corporate event can be a lot more than a national or regional series where the track is bought out entirely. And with large events, I always have support, either in another steward, assistant race directors, sometimes a clerk of the course, And I'm able to give some of my responsibilities to them, and that way someone else can screen the inquiry before it even gets to me, and then when it does get to me, everything is lined up ready to go. I read the form, I look at the video, and make the call. Every official I know is fully aware that they make mistakes. And when they get the opportunity to rectify one that they agree was a mistake, they always feel better about the situation. As you can imagine, we simply can't take somebody's word for it. So we have to rely on the series to have a process that protects us from frivolous attacks, but allows for a competitor, any competitor, regardless of budget, with a sincere complaint and evidence in hand to bring it forward. There isn't always a reason that they have to have money in the other hand. But let me know what you think. Should every inquiry or protest have a cost attached to it? Or are there circumstances where a free but structured inquiry might be worth the time? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, share, do all those wonderful things. And as always, I will see you at the racetrack.